There are several spooky and terrible historical mysteries that were never covered in school. From unsolved mysteries to supernatural phenomena, here are 10 creepy historical facts you were never taught in school. These are some of the eeriest historical occurrences, from unusual natural disasters to mysterious objects. Continue reading to find out more about some of the spookiest historical events that will give you the chills. Before starting, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more future updates. Let's begin, then. Number 10. Slug soup. A brilliant antidote for aconite poisoning is ascribed to the 14th century physician Guido da Vigevano. Today's gardens still include the very toxic shrub known as aconite or monkshood. During the Crusades, the Muslims even employed it as a weapon. Guido da Vigevano believed slugs may be able to provide a cure after seeing them munching on aconite leaves. He gathered a lot of them, cooked them, and then tried the mixture on animals. He tested it on himself after being happy with the results. Number 9. Bomb shadows. Astonishing devastation was wrought by atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, near the end of World War II. After emerging from the rubble, survivors saw strange, eerie shadows of automobiles, bicycles, and even humans etched on pavements and buildings. Since then, this strange occurrence has been explained. They are not shadows but rather have more in common with photos. According to Dr. Michael Hartshorn of the University of New Mexico School of Medicine, when an atomic bomb explodes, extreme heat and light are released in all directions. Any item in the way of the energy dissemination obstructs and shields it from the space behind it, making that space look much darker and film-like. Because of how powerful this energy is, it bleaches out the space surrounding the item and leaving the space behind it black. By doing this, an atomic bomb effectively serves as a massive camera that photographs its victims to death. Number 8. Animal trials. A sow with 6 piglets went on the rampage in the Parisian district of Savigny in December 1457, murdering 5-year-old Jehan Martin. All 7 of the pigs were taken into custody and placed on trial after the horrifying occurrence, but the animal's owner was just charged with carelessness and got off easy. But the swine was given the death penalty. Despite being covered in blood, the piglets were all found not guilty since there was no proof of their participation in the assault. The truth about the animal trials still exists as a peculiar chapter in European history. Since ancient times, animal trials have been widely used in Europe, from instances against lone animals that attacked people to larger cases where pests like rats or locusts were condemned for robbing farmers of their grain. Number 7. Pharaoh Pepi. With his mother as his protector, Pharaoh Pepi II Neferkare, an Egyptian royalty of the 6th dynasty of the Old Kingdom, ascended to power at the young age of 6 in 2278 BC. The Egyptians adored Pepi for his bizarre and unorthodox actions, such as telling his slaves to cover themselves in honey to fend off flies. Pepi was a really strange man. As a result, the bug was soon seen as a symbol of bravery and endurance in their eyes since it was a show of strength and courage to them. Then, as a prize for their brave service, the troops received gold flies. Pepi was also known for making unusual demands, including ordering Aswan Harkhuf to capture dwarves during his expedition to Nubia. According to several accounts, he had the longest reign of any pharaoh in history, lasting up to 94 and 64 years, respectively. Pepi became a famous figure in Egyptian mythology due to his peculiarity and subtle elements of creepiness. Number 6. Syphilitic zombies. Historians disagree on the exact cause of syphilis. According to the Columbian theory, after visiting the Americas in 1493, Christopher Columbus and his crew brought the sickness back to Europe. Contrarily, the pre-Columbian theory asserts that the ancient Greeks had developed cures for the symptoms of syphilis. Although some sources make this suggestion, historians are left to make assumptions since there isn't enough evidence to support this claim. French forces encircling Naples in 1806 recorded the disease's first European breakout. The illness would then severely rot away facial features, hands, and feet, causing individuals to suffer terribly as these bodily parts dropped from their faces. This had terrible effects. Even while affluence may help those who could afford it find some solace from the suffering, some fortunate survivors even undertook the first iterations of cosmetic surgery to restore their previous look. Number 5. Minnie Dean. Around 1890, the police in the New Zealand town of Invercargill developed a suspicion for a foster parent named Minnie Dean. She was actively looking for additional babies via newspaper advertisements while housing a huge number of infants in her dilapidated, filthy house. Further suspicion was raised when the authorities learned that she was attempting to get life insurance on the infants. As soon as there were reports of the missing infants, the police started paying closer attention to Minnie Dean. Then, in 1895, a reporter picked up on an oddity. A Minnie Dean was spotted boarding a train with a baby in a hatbox, but when she got off the train again, just the hatbox was gone, and it was noticeably heavier than usual. Number 4. Cruentation. Cruentation was a common method used in medieval times to determine if a person was guilty or innocent of a crime. When the defendant was brought close to the victim's body, if any of the corpse's wounds started to flow, a guilty finding was presumed. This might be interpreted as God finding the accused guilty and passing judgment, judicium Dei. Although it seems bizarre to us now, it was remarkably successful because the emotional anguish the accused murderer experienced when confronted with the body of their victim. People often could not manage their guilt and would confess their misdeeds when forced to see the death they had caused. Number 3. Death photography. Death photography was common during the Victorian period since the country had been devastated by plagues like cholera, typhus, and diphtheria. Due to sluggish shutter speeds and lengthy exposure periods during the early days of photography, moving scenes were often fuzzy. The deceased, however, were immobile and hence provided the sharpest focus for the photograph. Mourners often painted eyes on them to make them seem more alive. Additionally, they would cut hair for lockets and jewelry. Wax death masks were manufactured to retain memories while artworks representing death symbols and sceneries were produced by artists. Death photographers had stable employment while potentially lethal illnesses continued to plague nurseries, and as new epidemics spread, the need for death photographs rose. Death was all around, and the Grim Reaper was waiting to snap a photo with it. Number 2. Mummy unwrapping party. Egyptomania, a malady that affected Europeans in the 18th and 19th centuries, was an obsession with everything involving mummies. Mummies were sent over to Europe for vile medical purposes, such as the production of mummy medication and mummy brown paint. The popularity of the craze increased when Napoleon's wars in Egypt and Syria were successful. Around this craze, Victorian unwrapping parties that promised a night of food and wine emerged. The movement was launched by famous English surgeon Thomas Pettigrew. Before the mummies was actually unwrapped during the celebrations, visitors would listen to a historical lesson. Following the removal of the fabric layers, conversation would focus on the mummy's condition and hair color. It must have been a really spooky yet fun experience. Number 1. Gibbeting. Criminals who were found guilty throughout history have been subjected to shockingly brutal penalties. The worst kind was referred to as gibbeting. A criminal was imprisoned using this barbaric technique and hanged on a pole in the middle of the street. The wooden cage was shaped like a person. In a matter of days, one would pass away from thirst as large crowds came to see their suffering. Women were never executed by hanging because doctors valued their bodies and preferred to dissect them. It was awful to live so near to a gibbet. One could often hear the gibbet clinking, clanking, creaking, and moaning in the wind, and the odor was intolerable. The body would drop fragments of decomposing flesh and maggots. The poles were often studded with nails, sometimes as many as 12,000, to deter tampering. This is it for today's video. What do you think of our video? Let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more future updates. Thanks for watching.